Hello yet again, and welcome back to Compositing with Sam. This is episode 6, and in this episode we're going to take this photo recently taken on a trip to Cancun, and we're going to do a simple utility repair and traffic control staging. And I want to show some tricks with shadows. But the first thing we got to do is remove foreground elements, or at least pull out the foreground elements, as I mentioned in the past. You look at this and you may think there's not anything, but if we pull this curve out, it's going to make it much easier to do our camera matching, and that way we're not going to have to hide the underground layers. So we'll first do it by grabbing the free select tool, and we just want to trace this edge. Once we have that selected, we can Control X and Control V, and then we just want this to be its own layer. And now we have this and we have this. And so now we just want to export this as its own PNG. All right, now we're in Beyond Typicals. This is a pre-release version 3. And so it may look a little different depending on if you are on a 2 point something version or if you are later on in 3.0. This is the default project. We want to first go to our example projects and just select blank, and then we can turn off the total width labels. And the first thing I want to do is bring in those photos, and also I always just select 4K. That's going to change our resolution. Let's bring in the other image, and we're going to scale them a little bit. One thing we can't do is we can't let this curve show up because Beyond Typicals is currently only straight segments. And so we can just fix that by zooming in. And then we also want to make sure that the background is in the back and the foreground is in the front. And then also, because this is in Mexico, we're going to use metric units. And now I'm going to build out my existing road and composite at the same time. Alright, so now that I have the camera matched, I want to do something with the shadows. So you can see we have these palm trees here, and they're casting a shadow onto the road. And we can see it on the image, but we can't see it on our 3D model. And so we're going to try and fix that, at least a little bit. You want it to blend. And so we'll go into our vegetation and find our palm trees. You could also just type palm in the search box. So we have a couple different styles. We have this one, and we have this one. I think the first one's better. So we'll use that. And we'll place several of these in here. All right, so you can see here we placed all these palm trees, and the shadows are looking really cool, but you'll see that these trees, they're in the way. We want the real trees in the picture. So as part of version 3 of Beyond Typicals, there's this option where you select it, and as long as you're in the assets placement, you'll see this hide model or hide shadow. We could hide the shadow, but we don't want to do that. We want to hide the model. And just like that, it looks like the tree in the image is casting a shadow on here. Obviously the tree is not moving, and this shadow is, and that's only an issue if you are really worried about details, but also if you're doing video rendering. All right, so now we're going to do a phase. To create current phase, let's shut off our traffic, and we want to close this down to just one lane. So we've created the second phase. I put a trench in there. I've added these barriers, and then I also want to add a pipe in here. So we can do that by going to underground, turning on the pipe. I want it to be much bigger. Let's try a 50 centimeter, and then let's bring it up so we can see it. Again, we spent this time putting these shadows in from the trees, and now it's really cool that you can see them on this. And in reality, it might not be there, but we're just trying to communicate there's a pipe here, we're working on the pipe. And then the last thing I want to do is let's grab a, let's see if the backhoe, let's try an excavator. And it's too big, so we're going to just shrink it down just for the purposes of this communication. All right, and then the final thing, let's name these so that we can stay organized. Existing, we'll call this trenching. And then we'll just do a final one. And then on the final one, the only difference we're going to make is we're going to change this texture to a fresh asphalt, which you can hardly see from this perspective. Let's see if we can make it darker. All right, so there you go. In less than half an hour, we were able to take this image, pull out the foreground element, this curve over here, build our existing model, place the trees for the shadows, add a trench phase with an animated excavator. Make sure to check out beyondcad.com to learn more about Beyond Typicals, or reach out to us for a demo, and I will talk to you in the next one.